Welcome to the Saynetwork podcast. I'm Jordan, and I'm here with Megan Villalpando.
Hey, guys.
And Jim Sparks.
Hello.
On today's episode, we're talking about social media and its negative effects on youth and young adults today. We've already spoken a little bit about this in the season, or we will be speaking about it. So I'm hoping this podcast will have a fresh approach to this issue.
Oh, it's going to.
Yeah.
It's going to.
So according to the Pew Research Center, 69% of adults and 81% of teens in the U.S. use social media. So I think it's safe to assume that almost everybody is on it in some form nowadays. Additionally, there is a whole generation of kids who are being raised today that never knew a world without social media, which I thought was pretty crazy. What was the first social media site you guys ever used or set up a profile on?
I was definitely MySpace. And you could like customize your profile with like music and different stuff.
I had
so
MySpace in like sixth grade.
Yeah.
Did you have a picture of Tinkerbell on your MySpace?
No, but I had the little selfie.
Wait, selfie with a real digital camera or the phone selfie?
That's a good question. Probably phone.
Yeah.
I think it's phone. Yeah. But I don't even know if there was like a camera that faced me. Like I think I had to turn it maybe and
just hope you got it right.
I don't remember.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's like
Did your
iPhone
friends-
first generation or something. I don't know.
Did your friends get mad at you when they weren't in the top 8 or whatever?
Oh
They,
yeah.
like, switch it out.
Top 8.
Yeah,
I forgot
to get
about
mad
top
at you.
8. Yes.
I was an early adopter to social media. And so I signed up for things that I didn't like. As soon as I heard about them, I signed up for them and didn't mean I was active in them. But the first one that I was aware of as far as social media was concerned was Xanga. It was Xanga.
I haven't even heard
It was
of
like a
that.
blogging site. And that was the first kind of social media. Facebook, then Twitter, then Instagram, Pinterest. Like it just kept going. There's things I signed up, like the Google one, whatever that one was, trash. I would sign up for all of them. So my Google, I use Google Chrome, and my bookmark section, there's a social media tab that's in there, and there's a bunch of them in there. Stuff that landed, stuff that didn't. And so what's funny is I signed up for Facebook and I didn't do anything with it. And I was like really, really early on. And there's a lady here that that was early as well. And she goes, "Hey, I sent you a friend request on Facebook and I haven't heard back from you. Or like, are you going to be my friend?" And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, because I just signed up for it, and that because I was always just doing research on that. And so I went and I had friends and I was like, oh, well, that's weird. And so I got on. And so then it was kind of game on to Facebook. I was on MySpace, but didn't do a lot with it. And it was starting to get chaotic, like all of them. It's like they get the like a little bit of freedom because MySpace opened up like their to customization, and that's when it started taking off. And I'm like going to different pages, like I can't understand what's going on. So the ones I haven't actually signed up for ever though is TikTok. I have not signed up for. I've seen TikTok on like different links, but I have not signed up for a TikTok account. And I didn't sign up for Snapchat, and then I had to during the pandemic when I realized that I could use Snapchat filters in Zoom, and I did videos for kids by using the Snapchat filters on Zoom. So I do have a Snapchat thing now, but I've never really interacted with it. But Instagram was probably where I live most.
Yeah. I think, MySpace was definitely the first one. I had like my playlist. You like come onto the page, it starts playing music and everything else.
It was chaotic. That's why I struggle with it. I was like, there's just too much.
Well, and to change it, you had to go like get code. Like you had to copy and paste a code into MySpace to change the colors on your profile. And so like it was kind of primitive.
Yeah,
I guess.
I don't know how I did. I don't think I could figure it out.
Yeah.
I was like a 6th grade doing all my codes.
I do remember the first time though that I interacted with someone online, and that was a trip for me, an absolute trip. And that was through a messenger through AOL.
Oh,
And so yeah, I am a little bit older. And the first time that I messaged with someone I didn't know, and it was like a group that you could go in. And so my friend and I were like, all right, let's go in this group. And so
like a chat room.
Chat room, yeah.
Chat
It was a chat room. And I just said something completely ridiculous because I thought it was funny that you could do that anonymously. And then I fired up the whole group, and the chats were going crazy. And I just could not believe in that reel of time things could be happening. I mean, I tripped out. I could not believe it. It was pretty surreal. I know this is before you because you're a digital native pretty much.
Yeah, I feel like I vaguely remember chat rooms. Like that was a thing. Like everybody had like their Gmail account. You could, like create your chat rooms and stuff. But yeah, I didn't do much of that.
Well, I really that one night and it got weird, and so I was like, I'm never gonna do this again. It got really weird. That's the problem is when you find out, like you find out the dark side of things, and it's like really dark and weird. I found that out with YouTube. I uploaded a video of my son doing trick shots when he was 5 or 6 years old, and Ron Artest, who is a basketball player, Meta World Peace, didn't have a name for a little while. He tweeted the video out, and then it went on to ESPN2, page 2. ESPN used to have a thing called page 2, and it was like sports type stuff, but it was not like professional sports. And so there was a link, and that was the link of the day. And from when I went to work to when I got home from work, it was 25,000 views on it. And I didn't have any like parameters on it. So the comments were vile, like really gross about my son and stuff. And I went and deleted all of them, changed all the settings and stuff. And so the dark side of it is dark. And I learned that in a hard way. And it was gross. So,
wow. Well, that goes well with what we'll be talking about.
I figure it was a good lead.
Okay, so according to Dr. Lisa Coyne, a professor of psychology at Harvard Medical School, the platforms are designed to be like a slot machine and cause addiction with the promise of potential happiness or stimulation if you continue to scroll and swipe up. She also stated the tech industry is incredibly good at understanding human behavior, and every time you swipe up, you get a reward, and that quickly creates an addiction. And the problem with this addiction is it has a very high chance of resulting in anxiety, depression, and sometimes even physical ailments, it said. So have you found yourself becoming addicted to social media or using it, or have you found yourself, pulling out your cell phone in an awkward situation or when you're waiting for something and just aimlessly scrolling to like fill the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird addiction because it's not like in many ways, it's not like a productive addiction. Like some addictions there's a little bit of production going on in there. And you mentioned aimlessly just scrolling. I find myself doing that. And I'm like, what am I even doing? I'm not even reading the post. It's almost like a fidget spinner. But there's some interactivity that could happen. And so I'm looking through, and I caught myself doing that today earlier. I was like, I'm not even reading any of this stuff. I'm not even going through. I'm just doing it because I have the ability to grab that out of my pocket and do it. And it's kind of dumb,
I'd find myself like keep refreshing, even though like nothing new is coming. You just keep refreshing it, looking for something. And it's just like
those are kind of like, I feel like low points for me is like when there's like a site and you're like, dude, come on, give me something else. And like I hit refresh, I do the same thing. I'm like, gosh, it's that bad. Like there's been times where I've watched like enough YouTube videos that I hit like refresh and the algorithm spits out ones I've already seen. I'm like, did I just conquer the internet? Like, did I just watch them all? That the algorithm's not even giving me something new? But it's
real. And I don't know if it's that study or a different one, but I think something in your brain chemistry actually is like activated by that
the stimulation of it.
By touching your phone or like, getting likes or whatever. It's actually like can change your brain chemistry or something.
I know, it was interesting. I remember I was like really addicted to Snapchat for whatever reason. I have no idea. Like
I have reasons, but go ahead.
Like, I don't know. Have you guys heard of streaks on Snapchat?
No, you're gonna have to explain quickly because my brain is going in a different direction.
A streak is it's like if me and you Snapchat each other every day, like 3 days in a row, you have a little number.
Okay, I do know the streaks.
Okay,
yes.
yeah. So like me and a friend of mine, we had like 1,000-day streak or whatever.
Wow.
That was just going, and it was more like I didn't even care about like Snapchat. We didn't even care about Snapchatting each other, but we just do it to like keep the streak going.
Right.
And then one day it ended, and I almost like sawed off my arm, but I was so mad. But then you like think about it, you're like, I'm not getting anything out of this.
No.
I'm just there's no point to it. But
well, there's something about gamifying so much of that, and that's gamifying that. And particularly if you're a competitive person and you're starting to gamify, you're in like that. I believe it's dopamine that's just kicking in, and you're like, okay, because you're getting that, you're achieving that every day, but you laugh because you look back and like, what did you gain out of that?
Yeah, I even read somewhere that like so a lot of people, on like Instagram will have, fitness accounts and like workout, they'll show like their workout moves or something. And like even just watching that can stimulate your brain, like to the point where you like feel like you did that exercise kind of a thing. So like, so like some people say like, yeah, just scrolling through Facebook isn't or through Instagram isn't like equivalent to exercise or whatever, but like it does stimulate your brain kind of like exercise can, or it can exhaust your brain. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Do you get credit for exercising on that?
Well, you don't see any difference in that effort.
I guess. Fair enough.
But yeah, it can like exhaust your brain. It's kind of interesting, like exercise can.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't heard of that, but it makes sense because you feel good after watching it. Yeah.
Here's an activity you could do with Instagram with your friends, and there's a level of trust there.
I hate this game. Is that game?
No, this is, you just go to, when you hit search on it, it automatically pulls up the algorithm pulls up a bunch of things that you might be interested in based off your search history. You don't even have to search anything. You just hit the search button and that comes up, and then you show your friends. And so that way your friends, you would know what their search is based off what it is.
Yeah.
And it make you think twice. You're like, so just from an accountability standpoint, we've done that, and it's pretty funny because you're like, what the heck? Like, what are you searching for? What did you type in to get to this point? And you're like, it's like cats surfing while smoking whatever, random stuff, because anything is out there. And but that's just an exercise. We did do a game. Heather just reminded me recently that we did at WYI.
Where you put your phone in the bowl?
No, but
I thought that's the one you were talking about at first.
No, where I took over that girl's Instagram. Do you remember that, Megan? Where I unfollowed some people from her. I can't remember the game, but it was tense. Like, basically I asked for a volunteer, and I went and the first thing I did is I went on her Instagram. It was an Instagram takeover. And so
Instagram takeover.
So I picked a friend and I just liked all of their previous 20 posts. So now the friend's like, what the heck is going on? Right. So that was kind of creepy. And then I started unfollowing people. And there was like a mental breakdown that because I was unfollowing people on it, and I got to see a different level of like emotional attachment to it in that. And we all thought it was a joke at first, but then it quickly turned into, I was like, I have to pump the brakes on this, because she was all for it until I actually started doing it. And it was kind of traumatic.
Yeah, because then it's weird when you like have to follow them back again. They're like, why'd you unfollow me?
Exactly. That was exactly it. What she didn't know is the first two people I unfollowed was me and our Saynetwork account. So those were harmless. What was the bowl one? I can't remember the bowl.
The bowl one. Oh, that was, you were saying that as like an icebreaker game to like unlock your phone. So that didn't have to do with Instagram, I realized, but it was like you unlock your phone and just leave it in a bowl, and everybody like takes one and goes through it.
Yep. That would be fun.
I would hate that.
I would hate that too.
I'm fine. It'd be kind of boring.
So kind of going along with like where you're talking about with the unfollowing people, Instagram broke the news a few years back that it was working towards getting rid of being able to see how many likes a post was getting, because of the fact kids were getting, depression, anxiety, and even committing suicide over this. So it's easy to look at this and just think those are extreme cases, but when you look at it, it's actually a worth or the actual worth a like holds in today's day and age, especially to kids. It becomes far more clear that, it's likes is almost like a currency. Like people buy likes.
Sure.
And like for example, when your post gets 50 likes, but someone else at your school gets 300 likes, you're immediately being told by social media that this person's better than you, or they're more popular. So going along with that, kids can become obsessed with reviewing their peers' social activity. The article that I'm reading from states that when reviewing other social activity, people tend to make comparisons such as, did I get as many likes as someone else? Why didn't this person like my post, but this other person did? They're searching for validation on the internet that serves as a replacement for meaningful connection they might otherwise make in real life. So my question is, have you ever posted something that checked then on how many likes it has gotten, and or gotten like really excited or like a high off of seeing how many likes you got on a post or things like that?
I've checked. I mean, you would be lying if you said you haven't checked. Um, I think if I was younger, it would have affected me a lot more. Like I would have been kind of obsessed with it. I'm not obsessed with it. It doesn't bother me if I get whatever. But I do find though, there's certain people, like if I post something, I'll have people in mind with that. And I will check to see if they've liked that every once in a while. I'll catch myself doing that as if I have to some sort of appease them. And it's completely random a lot of times. So that's kind of silly. That's kind of dumb. I don't really care how many likes or interactions I get, but yeah, I may look at a pattern of people doing stuff. Sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. Like sometimes there's people that know a lot about you, and you're like, oh, and you kind of forget, So
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting too because I think early on, like if I'm not mistaken, Instagram didn't have an algorithm, so things were posted in real time.
Yep,
Things showed up in people's news feed in real
I miss
time.
those days.
Yeah, so I'm curious, like if the algorithm affects that. How many people are seeing things, how many people are liking things, that kind of
So
stuff.
when they did that, I found that the stuff that I posted on Instagram ended up getting more likes because it was kind of in a repeating pattern. Where a friend of mine who has an account that has way more followers and is very specific account on what he does, he got a lot less when that happened, when they made that switch. It was really, really interesting. I don't know why that happened, but yeah, it is kind of weird. Instagram didn't actually take the number count away. They've tried it and they've been testing it, but they still haven't. And I'm surprised by that
It
I,
it's weird for some people it goes
yeah.
away. Like I know
because they're testing it.
yeah, for my wife, like she can't see, but I can see.
Hmm.
That's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like there's probably a lot of complaints from like influencers and stuff. I mean, they rely on a lot of that
Sure,
stuff,
that's their
I think,
money.
the exposure. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I tend to judge likes though. Like sometimes I'll read too deep into it. I'm like, oh well, that's just because they like everything.
But maybe
Wait,
your
what?
stuff's stuck in their algorithm.
Yeah. It's like, oh, they like everything that I put up there. It doesn't count.
Oh, like if they liked your
Yeah,
post.
like if it's a serial liker,
Oh, yeah, they just
right?
like
That's more
everything.
with pictures that I post because like I use Instagram. Unfortunately, I use it for its original purpose, and that seems to be archaic for everybody. But I just put pictures up that I take that I like.
Yeah.
I'm an old man, apparently. I'm not into those stories.
Um, have either of you experienced the feeling of comparison even as adults, or like comparing your account to someone else, or um, anything in that realm? Comparing your likes or followers even, or
I feel like not so much as like an adult, but when I was younger, like first getting onto Facebook and stuff, I definitely that was definitely a thing. But yeah,
yeah.
not as much anymore. But I also don't I don't know, like I'm not an influencer, so like it's maybe a little less important to me because of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, as an influencer, uh,
Yeah.
I was an influencer for a sunglass company for 3
Oh, that's
posts on
right. Yeah.
Instagram, and that was a big deal in my life. And unfortunately, I lost those pair of sunglasses that they gave me.
You
Dang
lost
it.
your sponsorship.
Uh, yeah, the comparison game is weird. I probably do, but I don't purposely do it. Like I'm not like constantly doing it, like catching myself doing it. But I bet subconsciously I'm looking at it and comparing myself to others. I can't say that I outright do it and stuff, but I'm sure we do. We always do. We do that in life and everything we do. There's a comparison game to it,
Yeah.
and I it probably maybe more conscious of it when you're at the same event or same place as somebody. The funniest thing that I can't stand, like with comparison, is when people like post updates on real life events that are happening, like an earthquake. Like
Oh
it's like
yeah.
everyone races to be the first one to say we're having an earthquake. Like I know, well, I'm sitting right here. Like,
I feel like that's something old people do. I never see young people update what's happening actually.
That's true.
but yeah, I bet we subconsciously do it at the very
Yeah.
least. Can't help ourselves.
So another reason why kids are, getting addicted to social media and getting anxiety and depression, that this article cites is the feeling of FOMO, which is fear of missing out. Um, and the article offers a good example. I thought it says a seventh grader's best friend chooses a new best friend and posts pictures of the pair at the movies or on a weekend trip.
Such a flex move.
20 years ago, the girl may have been excluded from her best friend's activities, but she may not have known about it unless she was told explicitly. Now they find out through non-human interactions on social media. This is leading to the feeling of having to be constantly checking social media to make sure you're not left out or missing out on anything, which I thought that was interesting because I feel like that also a lot of people like want to get off social media or say that, but then like when they delete the app, like, 2 days later, you feel like you're missing out and then you re-download it and
Mm-hmm.
check and see what's happening.
Yeah, I think FOMO, fear of missing out, is debilitating in a lot of ways, and it's very real for everybody. Like everybody has a sense of that.
Yeah, like every age group is
Has a
Yeah.
sense
Yeah.
of that. You see that heavily in teenagers, and that is a very real thing. There's some great documentaries. I might send some your way to put in the show
Yeah.
notes to watch about that kind of stuff and the pressures that teens kind of put on themselves to go through that. And it's a very real thing when they see like they said, oh no, they don't want to hang out, and then they find out that they're over here. That stinks, man. Like
Yeah.
it stinks for everybody. And so, but that's a very real thing. I I I don't think it's limited to age, though. I do think, uh, uh, and for adults, I think a wedding is like one of the biggest things you see.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of adults post pictures at weddings that are crappy pictures of the wedding. Like they don't even let the photographer do their work because they just want to check in to let people know that they got invited to that wedding and you didn't. Which that doesn't work for me because I don't need to be invited to any weddings. I'm good to go. But those type of things, I do feel like people are posting and do that. And I've caught myself doing that over the years where I'm like urgently trying to post something. Like I catch myself like I got to urgently post this right now. It's like a hard deadline and no one knows, no one cares, but I want to post it to show that I am here or I am there. And I don't like that about myself. So I try to stop that as much as possible. But weddings kind of drive me bonkers. It's like put the phone away and enjoy the wedding. You got invited because you're a friend. You're not invited so that you could just show that you're in attendance, like you're in the club and stuff. But
Yeah.
as adults, that's where I've heard people have most angst, like in different circles, be like, "Well, how did you get invited to that wedding?" I was like, "I didn't even want to." Like,
Yeah.
and so that is it's a very real thing, and it's tough. Like if you feel like you weren't invited, it's tough when you feel like, hey, how come they didn't contact me? I like doing that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with that in real time. And this is something that we've actually talked to my son about because my son is of age to be on social media and he refuses. And he's like, if people are talking about me or doing things behind my back, I don't really want to know. And if I don't know, then I don't ever have to deal with it. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
I wish I could take your advice in a lot of ways. So it's tough. And I put myself like in that age group, like when I was younger, oh, I would struggle with that a lot. Like they'd be like, dude, what the heck?
Yeah.
I want to go to the beach too.
There's also like a feeling of relevance. Like if you're not on social media, it's like you're not relevant or you're like missing out on like the trends and things. And then
Yeah.
you're just like lost in the dark.
There's also
You
a
know?
little bit of a hipster feel to it for the people who just absolutely refuse. There's a little bit of a respect level. Like,
Yeah.
all right, you wouldn't say it, but you're like, yeah, I get it. I got you.
I think that extends to like social media platforms too. So like I'm not on TikTok, but I always hear about from people who are on TikTok, like, oh, about this and that or whatever. So I think that kind of extends into different platforms as well.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, and you're like, am I missing out? Like that's the question I'm
Yeah.
asking myself. Am I really missing out? Like,
Yeah.
am I gonna be better for getting on that? And so, like, for part of the understanding youth culture and studying youth culture, that's why I was always so early on understanding what these were. But then they became so much that I was like, I'm not going to be on all of these. I can't be active on all these. It's not
Yeah.
just possible anymore. And to be honest, I'm not going to gain anything at this point for being on it. In fact, I might dumb myself down in certain cases
Yeah.
on it. So that's where I've been kind of drawing the line a little bit more of like, I don't need to be on it that much anymore. And I would like to reduce as much as I can my, my presence on those type of things. I find that the more I kind of get away from it, the easier things have become.
Yeah. I feel like I would check it a lot too for like news,
Mhm.
especially like in 2020. I was
Yep.
always checking because that's where I'd get most of my news from was whatever people are posting on their stories or whatever. And then now I just look at Apple News. I'm like, I don't need that.
I don't need that.
But
But
that's
it
like
is
another
hard.
feeling of FOMO. Yeah.
Yeah, it is
dude.
hard when you
Yeah.
discipline yourself to do that and you have to do it. I mean, I I do that when you guys are always talking about Netflix. I've never signed up for Netflix and I'm like, "Oh man, that sounds really good. I really like to watch it." But then I'm like, "Do I really need to watch it?" Like,
Yeah.
maybe it's good just to sit and listen to what people enjoy and
Yeah.
don't always have to have an opinion on it.
This is like a little off topic, but just on the well, a little we already talked about this, but in regards to like the likes and like comparisons and everything, it's interesting because like I think back to like I mean, even beginning of college, you like ask people like, should I post this picture? Like I would never just like post something right
Yeah.
away. You'd always like check with like eight people like, should I post this? They're like, yeah, or someone would be like, no, don't post that.
Well,
And then you kind of go according to that because you don't want to look dumb
yeah.
posting something.
Yeah.
Well, going back to the social media, I think there's a lot of discouraging parts of it, obviously, but like from a work standpoint, it's really discouraging. Like when you're working like on an important message that you feel like is this really heavy thing or a serious thing, and you've been working on it, and you're like, wow, this is powerful, and I believe that God is moving in this and stuff, and you post it and it gets zero traction whatsoever, and you're like, gosh, this is what they asked for. This is what they wanted. And I really worked hard. And I thought it was good. I had a bunch of people said it was good and we put it on and it got zero thing. And then I
Yeah.
post something incredibly dumb on there and it just goes wild. And it's like so discouraging to me. It's like, I don't want that. Like,
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
I want this over here, but that's kind of how it is. It's tough to deal with.
Um, so something else I was looking at was that Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, which I'm sure you probably haven't seen it because you're not on Netflix.
No, but I read about it.
um, and it was interesting because some of the biggest tech executives at these social media companies won't let their own children use any type of social media, and they themselves also don't use it at all, but they're the ones developing it. So like if the people creating it refuse to use it, that should be a hint that they're aware of the negative effects it has on people and want to protect themselves and loved ones, which I thought was interesting. And
Yeah, but some of that is strategic because your child or your family member could post something that could take you down as well. So some of that is strategic.
Well, and some of them don't work for tech companies anymore, and they still don't like
Yeah.
allow their kids on the social media,
Yeah.
which I thought was really interesting.
And to go back to my YouTube example, when you see the darkness
Yeah.
of it, it's
Yeah.
like if I post something to YouTube, like usually it's blocked, like people can't see it, only the links, people would get the links on it. I was forever changed, and I was very conscious about what I even post about my kids. Now I'm very careful. In fact, just about every post that involves my kids, I ask them first, is this okay for me to post this and stuff? And there's a lot of times they said no, and I'm like, all right, yeah, no problem. And so protecting them as well, because you
Yeah.
get exposed to the dark stuff, and sometimes by nature of traveling in my job, um, I'll show up and they'll talk to me, and I forget that I forget that I had posted something, and they'll talk to me about it. I'm like, ugh. And they're not stalking me because it's out there, but it feels that way when you get there and you're not remembering that you did that. And so there is that kind of darkness to it.
Yeah.
And there's different rabbit holes that could go down that are also troublesome as well that you have to be mindful of. Just even with pornography and how accessible that becomes, even through social media. A good example is Tumblr, the microblogging site. I really liked for a while, but all some pornographic images where people were able to post pornographic images on there. And that's like a free site that anyone could go on. And that's dangerous. Like that you could, a young person could get into that and an adult could get into that real quick. And it's not an obvious thing. So that if mom or dad or your accountability partners see that, they're not they're not going to ask about it. So luckily Tumblr changed their policy a couple of years ago, but uh, just the just the rabbit trails that you go down is pretty scary, particularly for kids. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad right now that my kids don't want to do it. They're going to get on social media, and we'll have discussions when we get there on that. But as youth workers, we have to be extra mindful and not afraid to talk about those rabbit holes and talk about those dangers that
Yeah.
goes down, and acknowledging that, and also figuring out how it all works, figuring out how that works so that you can educate not only them but the parents on what's going on. Because here's the funny part is I've taught youth culture a lot around, and I would always be like this and this and this. And particularly with teenagers, I would be zeroing in, and I didn't have a teenager. Now I have a teenager. So it is a little bit different. And I recognize the importance of like, I still know that I got to check all that stuff just to see. I check my kids' phones every once in a while, just random check just to see what's on it. And so I still follow my advice, but I realize how hard that is. You have to actually be disciplined to remember to go and do it, because kids, like, the phone's not a novelty anymore. It's just there. And so you're so used to it being a part of who we are. You don't go and check. And so we have to be able to go and do that and make sure we're paying attention, because it's a slippery slope once you get in there, and it's hard to get away from it. And there's so many ways to get around it for apps, different things that could sidetrack people in other directions. So you just got to be very aware of it, but we need to talk about it. We need to be able to talk about the dangers of that kind of stuff. And not only just talk about it, but be a good example of posting. I've seen youth workers talk about the importance of being thoughtful about your posts, and then you look at their posts, it's not as it's not as thoughtful, it's not as curated as you might think it is. And so those are important things so that our kids have a good understanding of what it is. And we talked about it, Megan and I were talking about it a little bit yesterday, but figuring out a way to take a break and take a
Yeah.
break. Your life's not going to end when you take a break. And we need to build that into kind of our system. I know you're disciplined. You don't have the apps
Yeah.
even on your phone,
I deleted them
so that you
because
don't
I would
have to
just
do
keep
that.
checking them
Yeah.
randomly. Yeah.
And you don't even realize you're doing it. That's like what's kind of scary
Right. That's
about
what I
all of
caught
it.
myself at lunch
Yeah.
doing. I was like, I wasn't even
Yeah.
paying
It's just a
attention.
habit.
So it's about obviously self-discipline and trying to sort that out. But being willing to admit that kind of stuff is tough, and
Yeah.
kind of go through that, because you have probably a little bit of FOMO sitting inside you.
Yeah. Especially like I think it kind of starts to, run your life, and you just live your whole life on social media. So
Right. And there's not always like, there's certain things that you might rebel and do, and you know that they're wrong, right? Some sinful thing that you know that is wrong, and you're just going to do it, and you know that you're going to suffer a little bit of the consequences.
yeah.
Something like social media is not as obvious on the consequences. It's a little bit longer term, and like a slower burn, really.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't feel as bad when you're on. There's less rebellion. You're like, oh, well, this is normal. Everybody's on. And in its inherently, it's fine. It is normal. It's good. But it could be very toxic and take over your life.
Yeah.
Could tunnel you into views that are may take you into an extreme route if you're not careful, if you're just not mindful of it. Right
Yeah.
now, my fear on social media is how many people are responding to those questions that are like 94.7 rock radio of Texas or something, like Facebook page. It's like this
Oh.
vague Facebook page, and like
Yeah.
the last 4 digits of your social security are going to be your number into heaven. And I'm watching like people I know answer that question. I'm like, stop answering those
Yeah.
questions. And so it's not just for kids, it's adults too. You'd be like,
Yeah.
hey man, you gotta watch out. You're gonna get your stuff hacked, and it's not good.
Yeah. I feel
By the
like-
way, that's not a good way to know what number you're in heaven. It's not accurate.
Yeah. Thanks. I feel like, yeah, I mean, especially like in college for me, realized later that I was getting a lot of my like um confidence or anything else by how many likes I'd get. Cause
Mhm.
like I get a lot of likes and then I just feel on top of the world and
Yeah.
like just felt good about myself all the time. And then like afterwards you're like, it's like completely pointless. They're just there, but it doesn't mean anything. And you're like, there's no point
Yeah.
in any of this. I think so many kids just get wrapped up in it. Like, I don't know, like a year ago. It was like right as the pandemic hit. I like went through my Facebook friends and I just like I unfriended like 1,000 people. I was like, I don't even know these people. I don't know why I'm friends with them on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good times.
Good times. Yeah.
Have you ever announced that you're leaving something and then came back?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like leaving social media?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never like announced like publicly. I mean, I'll tell like my friends or someone, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm getting rid of this. And also the next day I'm like, they're like, I thought you were getting rid of that. I was like, I know, I gave in. um Anyway, so I mean, you kind of answered my next question that I was going to explore, which was in a world where social media is ever present, how can we, work with it and change it into something that's positive? Um,
Well, can I add to that
yeah,
a little bit? There, social capital is very much a thing, and so, particularly with youth work, and so when you recognize their posts and you see their posts and acknowledge their posts, that's the thing. And if you know what they like because you see the activity that they may have, because they'll show up on certain social media sites, then you could acknowledge those, and that creates some social capital there. So that is a good thing. I find I'm not friends with minors really at all, I think anymore. And so but if I see posts, what I've been doing less of, like if particularly if it's an achievement post, is I will congratulate them in person rather than just leave it there because it also feels less personal of just like a like of talking to them personally and be like, hey, I saw that you got this new job. Congratulations. That's really exciting. Tell me more about that. And kind of diving deeper because I realized a lot of my interaction with people was just like just a like or the little hug
yeah,
or the little things. And that's not deep enough in as far as a relationship is concerned. And so use the information and then go and talk to them personally and say, hey, tell me more about this. Like, what was that trip like? Did you have fun? And
yeah,
and get more out of just simply liking their posts. And I've been finding some very good conversations that happen through that and some value that comes out of that. I've enjoyed that part
yeah,
of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's cool that we can be more connected with people. Like we have some really cool stories of like Service Corps where, they'll get connected. Well, they'll meet in person and stuff. They'll go on their mission trip and they meet a bunch of great people, and then they're able to stay connected and keep some of those relationships going on social media. So I think on the connective side, there are some good stories that have come out of that, good relationships built. I think also, I think of sounds ridiculous, but that show Catfish. You guys
Oh
remember that
yeah,
yeah,
show?
catfish.
Okay, so a lot of times these catfish like people, they're really like lonely people. It's really sad, honestly. And I'm not saying catfishing is the way to go, but I think the
Sounds like you
internet,
are.
the internet has allowed people like to help, not maybe feel so lonely and stuff, and find community or find like hopefully not people to catfish, but just find friends.
yeah. There's been a lot of shows and like movies lately about catfishing that have been coming out. There's like a Christmas movie my wife and I watched the other day.
That
Where
sounds
like
like a Hallmark one.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was
you're trying to
actually
stay
it
away from saying
actually
Hallmark.
wasn't terrible. No, it was on Netflix. She like flew to New York to like meet this guy that she was talking to or something, and then for like Christmas, and then it was like a different guy or so. It
Oh,
was like a whole twist, but yeah, she got catfish. um, so at the end of the article, it states that another study they did that was actually um, helping young adults and people with anxiety and depression that was stemming from social media use. And they talk about a research study. They looked at 143 undergraduates randomly assigned to two groups. The first set was asked to limit Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat to 10 minutes per platform per day. while the second was asked to continue to use their social media as usual for 3 weeks. And the limited group showed significant reductions in loneliness and depression during those 3 weeks over the group that continued using social media. Um, so I thought that was really interesting because, like, obviously, I think it's nearly impossible to like eradicate social media now from our lives. Like, it'll always be there, I think. So, um, in many ways, I think limiting your time with it is the best way to go with it,
Yeah.
from what I've found.
If you can.
Yeah, especially if it's like becoming kind of, I don't know, like toxic in a sense, or
Yeah.
something's going on there that's like triggering you, or or you find yourself just mindlessly like spending way too much time on it, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I agree. I do think like social media is here to stay. The platforms might change and like certain things will become more popular, other things less popular, but I think it's here to stay for sure.
Yeah. So a Salvation Army highlight that I thought was really cool was it was about an ARC graduate.
So jealous of this guy.
Yeah, James. I think it's Irig.
I don't know.
Hopefully I pronounced that right. He hiked the 2,600-mile Pacific Crest Trail hike to deepen his relationship with God along the way. He says it became the purpose to change his life and couldn't get the idea out of his head after reading the book Wild, From Lost to Found on the Pacific Coast Trail while in prison. And that book's about Cheryl Strayed. I think there's a movie about it with
I saw the movie.
with Reese Witherspoon. And it's her real life story about how she
Oh.
did this hike as a reset following a bunch of unfortunate events in her life. So for the remainder of his prison sentence, he prepared mentally and physically to go on that hike. And once he was released, he entered into ARC program in Seattle to fight his addiction before setting out on the trail. He did convince a friend to come along with him after traveling several hundred miles. His friend decided he'd had enough, but James continued on alone and met some people along the way and actually finished the trail. I guess it took him a total of 5 months.
Wow.
But I thought that was really cool because
It's pretty amazing.
yeah,
There's a part of me that's incredibly jealous, and a part of me is like, nah.
yeah, I
Nah.
can't imagine spending a
The
half
trail's
year hiking.
it's like the whole West Coast, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
basically.
I think is it from San Diego to like Canada?
I believe so.
Oh, to
Yeah.
Canada.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would like to do the Washington State portion. I think that would be cool. But
Yeah. Oh yeah, that would be cool. It'd probably be rainy. Be cold.
yeah, it would be amazing. That's a pretty amazing feat, and to do something like that.
Yeah. I saw the officers who worked with him in the ARC, they like greeted him
Yeah,
at the border.
Yeah, it was
or
very
whatever.
cool.
I thought that was cool.
very cool. What's the longest hike that you've done?
I'd say at one time it was probably actually I don't know how many miles they were, but I've done a few like 14ers, like 14,000 foot ones in Colorado growing up. But I think just like normal hike, like flat, was probably like 14 miles or something like that.
Man, that camp. I haven't done a 14,000er,
Yeah.
but when we went, Stephanie and I went over Labor Day weekend, and we were in the Rocky Mountain National Park, and I lost my breath several times.
Oh yeah.
It was pretty high and hiking, and yeah, it was tough. But
yeah.
I love it. I love being out there. It's just being away, and particularly to stay on topic, like when your phone is disabled because it can't
Yeah.
work out there. It's a good feeling to be out there.
Yeah.
I
Get
think
away.
I think it's really cool that even though his friend like, dropped out or wasn't able to continue, he still continued on because that's like a
Yeah.
treacherous. I mean, I've only like seen the movie, I haven't read the book, but just from watching the movie, I'm like, it's not an easy. Like some parts are like flat, but there's like
Yeah.
real hiking.
Here's
and
the
stuff
thing, though. If
involved.
Reese could do it, I mean, this guy could probably do it, right? Didn't Reese Witherspoon?
I mean, it seemed pretty dangerous too. That was like the big thing. It's kind of dangerous for like anybody to just be out there on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if my friends
Yeah.
dropped out, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
God dang it. I'd just be mad at them.
Yeah. Because then if
But
you
then kind of secretly happy.
get lost or something happens
Yeah.
to you, you're on your own. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All right. Well, everything we've talked about in this episode is linked in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Saynetwork podcast on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube so you don't miss out on new content. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week with a brand new episode.
See you guys next
See ya.
Yep.